Good evening, everybody. Welcome. We are live from Books and Books right here in Coral Gables, Florida, with thanks to the Knight Foundation for their generous support. Just a reminder to our internet audience, if at any time during tonight's presentation you'd like to get a copy of tonight's book, you can do so by calling the store, and we'll get you a signed copy, and we'll ship it to you free of charge for the shipping anywhere here in the U.S. And for those of you here, please silence your cell phones, and don't forget to pick up a copy of our Books and Books newsletter. This will give you a synopsis of all the wonderful events we have at Books and Books every night of the week. We do 60 events every month. We have Spanish events, kids events, poetry readings, first-time authors, and celebrity signings. And when you do visit our website at booksandbooks.com, please give us your email as well so we can keep you apprised of everything that goes on here so you don't miss a thing. You can also follow us on Facebook and on Twitter. And don't forget to visit our newest Books and Books location. We are now down at the Carnival Tower, also known as the historic Sears Tower, at the Adrian Arch Center downtown. It's a beautiful new bookstore, full bar, full cafe, very nicely done down there. It's been reviewed on a couple of media outlets here in the South Florida area, getting a rave review. So please check that out. Tonight we're very happy to have with us George Hodgman and his book Bettyville. Evocative of the End of Your Life book club and the Tender Bar, Hodgman's debut novel, Bettyville, is both an indelible portrait of a family and an exquisitely told tale of a prodigal son's return. George Hodgman is a veteran magazine and book editor who's worked at Simon & Schuster, Vanity Fair, and Talk Magazine. His writing has appeared in Entertainment Weekly, Interview, W, and Harper's Bazaar, among other publications. He lives in New York City and Paris, Missouri. Please give a warm welcome to Mr. George Hodgman.
Thank you, and thank you for having me. And my Facebook friend, Ann Dodd, brought these. They figure in the book. I talk about, sometimes I rely on them to get me through a hard day. So I'm just going to display them here. When you have a book coming out, it's sort of like the week is kind of a bipolar experience, and they're the really good days, and then, you know, good things happen. You get a good review, you get somebody reorders copies, and then they're the less good days. And today wasn't really too great. And I'm living, the town I'm from is Paris, Missouri. It's pretty small, and 1,200 people, and they're not in the habit of ordering books from Amazon, and so they several people have not received their books, and they sort of think that I'm the person to call about it, and you know, and it's like, I haven't gotten my book yet, and I haven't gotten my, you know, and I ordered it 20 days ago, and I paid for it with my da-da-da, and then this other lady called me up. I got my book, but it was waterlogged. And another lady, she said, I did not get my book. I got a garden flag. They sent me a garden flag. And so that was like, rocked my world. And so anyway, here I am in Coral Gables, and I love Florida. I love Miami. The first vacation I ever got to come on was when I was in second grade, and we came to Miami Beach, and there was this little hotel on Collins Avenue, and it was called the Row Congress Hotel. And I thought it was very glamorous, you know. It was like, but where I really wanted to stay was the Deauville or the Fontainebleau, where I wanted to go to Jackie Gleason and do all that stuff. And my father's aunt Sade, who figures in the book, and who like smoked 14 cigarettes a minute and had a voice that was sort of like Al Capone on a. And she lived in Boca. Come on down to Boca. And we'll see you in Boca. And her husband made his money in ice, which I thought was also really, I like the sound of it, like an ice magnet. And so we went to Boca to visit her. Well, and she had a maid who said that she was Castro's sister, and a Florida room, and she called it the Florida room, and I thought, I want a Florida room. I really do, and I still want a Florida room, I think. But we went to the Lincoln Road Mall and rode around on that. They had little trolleys then, and we went to Saks Fifth Avenue. And my father is very down to earth, but my mother and I had just glamour ideas, and we would look at those stores, and we kind of had a longing, and so I'm staying at the Biltmore in Coral Gables, and it's like I want to move there, and so thank you again for being here, and I'm gonna read this little piece, and then I'm gonna read a piece from the book. My mother is sitting in front of the mirror at the hairdresser's on the suburban outskirts of St. Louis, peering at her reflection as if she just cannot fathom what on earth became of the woman she used to see there. Someone is almost missing. She is almost missing. She senses it. We sense it. It chills us, but we are silent about what is happening. Maybe if we can change her hair, we can bring her back a little. Maybe if she can look in the mirror and see someone she remembers, she will feel a little more comfortable in her skin. It's the little things. That's what taking care of someone is to me. The little things that for a moment or two hook her back to her life or bring a sliver of light to her eyes. If I were to make a list of suggestions for caretakers, it would be all about little things. Treats and surprises and special foods and presents on dark days. Come back home, I want to whisper into my mother's ears, because she seems so far away all of a sudden. In the background, Katy Perry sings Teenage Dream. Helen, who does my mother's color, picks up Betty's mood, says, "Don't worry, babe, we do you up. We're going to take this shit to a new level." Betty is 92. She has that expression she gets sometimes, a certain hard, unseeing stare she never had in the old days. Before the losses, driving, the piano, the bridge club, the ladies who used to call. Before the dementia and the struggle to remember the names and places in the books she reads. Diane Sawyer, Katie, Couric, Babe, what is her last name? Paley. Before the cancer and the dry skin from the radiation, when things were more normal. My mother's state of mind inflicts its burdens on everything around us now. It colors our world completely. The winter has been gray, the color of the low fog drifting in the Missouri river bottoms. The heat in the house is never right, but often it is too hot. There are so many things that will summon this era in our lives for me later. The dry air pressing on my face in our quiet house. The moisturizer that is hell to administer as she cannot bear the pressure of my fingers on her face. The cinnamon rolls every morning. The old sandals by her bed that she insists on wearing. Even today, on this winter day, in the parking lot, I half lifted her through the patches of slush, and every time she screamed out. Now and again there is still a flash of smile or an amused look that signal the arrival of the woman who used to be here. But today her eyes are glassy, and I don't want to look at them because they make me feel I don't know her anymore. More disturbing is the sense that she doesn't know her anymore. Most disturbing is the sense that the woman in the mirror is the last person in the world my mother wants to see. The sight of this woman can sometimes make her cry. I wonder what would happen if we dyed her hair a shade it has never been. Red, blue, like Katy Perry's. But that fantasy always leads to the next thought. What if she didn't recognize herself at all? I wonder if it will be like that sometime in the near future. I have been away from New York, living at home in our little town for more than 3 years now, because I do not want my mother to be alone with all the things she is feeling as her self drifts off. I do not want her to be alone with her fear. I don't want to put her in a place that will make her worse instead of better. I don't want her to be lonely. Dementia is not treatable, but one can scrub away at the edges a bit, lifting the depression and the terrible anxiety she carries, the anxiety of knowing she's drifting away on her little boat towards some unnameable spot. Getting well is nothing I can imagine for her. I just hope that the cancer, lymphoma, held at bay by light radiation, and the dementia will come together in some civilized place where she can find her peace. My goal is just a few happy hours for her every day. That is what I hang on to, the task of finding one space every day where we can find a little refuge from the inevitable. Little things, little comforts. I am always looking for new ones. There are the medicines that lift her a little, but I always say that two Bloody Marys help her a lot more than anything. There are the weekly viewings of Dirty Dancing. I've had the time of my life, I sing to her sometimes, sitting on the edge of her bed. There are the peppermint patties left under her pillow, and the CD from Phantom of the Opera that I play in the car on the way to some of the most difficult doctor's appointments. These are the things that spell survival in our world. On very special days, there are these trips to the hairdresser. They lift her up a little, though they are epic journeys now, made difficult by the struggle to get her ready in the mornings, the battle to get her to the bathroom at the truck stop midway to the city. We take the dog along, and every few minutes she turns back towards the seat to ask him, "Well, what are you doing?" We live in a tiny town located 125 miles away from the St. Louis suburb of Frontenac, where she used to drive in to shop at Saks. We don't go to those stores anymore, but she still enjoys looking at the fashionably dressed women in the hair salon. Watching her watch them here in this place, located in this expensive neighborhood, I try not to see her longing. If, when assessing their lives, she starts to feel down, I make up something to cheer her up. That woman with the diamond ring, you see her? She wanted to know where you got that sweater. She told me it was the prettiest sweater she's ever seen. Really? Betty asked. Yes. She also says she wishes she had your coloring so she could wear a sweater of that shade. She also likes your bracelets. I paid good money for these bracelets. Betty always says. She says this every time someone mentions her jewelry. Mostly here at home, I have no one to talk to. I spend hours on Facebook chatting with the people whom Betty calls my imaginary friends. Sometimes I get angry at my mother. Sometimes dealing with an older parent, it is possible to get a little testy. It is very guilt-inducing. He or she can't help it that they are driving you crazy. You don't want to be mad at the person you love, so you come up with little games to take the pressure off. For example, you can pretend you're parenting someone else's parent. For example, you can pretend your mother is, say, Cher. When she is peeved at breakfast because her eggs are scrambled, not fried, you can say, "This is the way you always liked them in Vegas when you played the main room at Caesars." This tends to throw a rogue element into the interaction. In the period of confusion, she will often eat the eggs. Later, if she will not get up and answer the phone, you can say, "Mother, it's Anne Margaret. The yucca is flowering in the canyons, and she wants to borrow your Ducati." This tends to bring even an older woman to her feet for whatever reason. Perhaps the lure of the Italian. In the afternoon, when she is mad because the mail will not come on time, you can say, Gene Simmons is delivering the mail today, and you know how he is. She will give you a kind of freaky look, but there will be silence, and you will be grateful, and can plan for the evening when you plan to offer her, if she is feeling low, the opportunity to sit on top of the piano and do the number about the gypsies. Betty is talking to Helen about another of the books she is reading, The Secret Confessions of Ava Gardner. It's the filthiest book I have ever read. Would you like to borrow it? I can bring it next time. I wonder if we will ever be here again. When Ava goes to bed with a man, she says they're in the feathers, Betty says. Who does she get in the feathers with, says Helen. Frank Sinatra. He was so hateful. Already my mother is more cheerful. Maybe it was the feel of Helen's fingers on her scalp, or the warm water, or the shampoo, or just having someone a little different to talk to who isn't me or a doctor. When I return from the bathroom and the coffee place next door, she is under the dryer, her small head floating like a little planet under the black bonnet of the appliance. She smiles at me a little and slaps my arm as I pass, just a little piece of healthy mischief. She has always been obsessed with her appearance, but particularly her hair. The record of her styles and shades through the decades might be a cosmetology textbook, a history of American coiffure. So many years, so many Bettys. Watching her sitting there, I wonder if she's thinking back on all the others, worrying about who the next one will be. I have to keep a watch on this mood to sustain this little patch of cheerfulness. I bend over to whisper, later we will go to Baskin Robbins for the lemon custard. You try to keep the boat in calm waters, whatever it takes. You look fabulous, I tell her, as Helen combs her out, and she studies the mirror closely, seeing, for an instant, a woman who seems a little bit more familiar. Now, there's another little piece. There are cameras somewhere. I'll bet they have the wrong angles. Last night, my cousin Lucinda, who tries to appeal to my interests, invited my mother and me to a benefit for the Missouri Review. Throughout the dinner, I fretted, knowing there was a reading to come. Glancing now and then at Betty, I wished for brevity. I hoped that our entertainment would not be a poet, but no, a poet it was. Despite the weather, she was wearing a jacket of a sort of faux zebra, trimmed in leatherette with tassels on the buttons. Her name was Jude Nutter. Where, my mother asked quite loudly, did that jacket come from? I cringed as Betty glared at me with an expression with which I am very familiar. It seems to suggest that I am personally responsible for every particle of bullshit loose in the world. What was her name? My mother asked loudly after the introduction. Nutter, I said, Jude Nutter. What? My mother asked, incredulous. Jude Nutter. Her name is Jude Nutter. Nutter? My mother asked again, even more audibly than before. N-U-T-T-E-R. Yes, I repeated again. Nutter. N-U-T-T-E-R. My cousin looked slightly uncomfortable as Jude nodded at our table, sensing some disturbance. Betty smiled back, gave a bit of a wave, as if it had been announced that she had just won the Academy Award. I knew things were going to get worse when Jude confided that she had grown up in a house on a lot adjacent to the Bergen-Belsen concentration camp. Jude continued, telling us about her special kinship with insects, which she likes to feel on her body. This is sensual and pleasing for her. I waited, but Betty, intent on her brownie, made no remark. I began to breathe more regularly. Then Jude started to recite her first poem, a work that opened with the image of flies on the body of a dead lamb. Again, Betty shot me that look. It is always me. I am always responsible for everything. How, Betty pondered loudly, did we get involved with this? She threw her half-consumed brownie down on the plate as if it were a horseshoe. Jude Nutter mourned the lamb. The second poem began. Jude Nutter read to us of finding the dentures of her deceased mother in a small container in her mother's bathroom. Soon there were Germans. Then there were the teeth. Then the insects. Then the teeth again, the haunting melancholy of her mother's gaping oral cavity. Finally, the poem built to a dramatic conclusion. Jude kissed the teeth and threw them in the river. She's going to have a hard time topping that, my mother said. Maybe we could do a little Q&A, if anybody would like. Hi there.
Hi, I've read the first chapter of your book, and I am having such a great time already. I was wondering how your mom's doing, actually, right now.
We've had kind of a hard winter.
Yeah.
She has some health issues, and in terms of her cancer is kind of. We're having a bad moment. No, she's not in the hospital. Yeah.
Good.
We were sort of held the cancer at bay for a while, and but this winter she's had a lot of pain in her stomach, so she had to have another round of radiation, and it's taken her a while to recover from this round, and it's winter, and everybody's worse in winter. You all don't have to worry about that now, do you? But I'm hopeful for the summer. I'm hoping that we'll have a nice summer.
You two must be missing each other a lot right now.
I do. I miss I have a routine that I have built up, and it was very hard to leave her. It was very hard to leave her. And my dog.
How long are you going to be gone for?
I'm going to be back in Missouri next Friday.
Oh, good.
This is just, I have one long stretch of tour, and then in April I have little hops.
Good.
I get to go to Dayton, Ohio, but I'd rather come here.
So, George, has Betty read the book?
No.
Will she read the book?
After my death. I think that she will not read the book.
Okay.
I just can't imagine. I would like her to somehow be involved in the festivities, or I'd like to give her some way to participate.
Yes.
And I have racked my brain to try to find a way to do that, but I'm not sure. I can't.
She must be very proud of you then.
Is your mother very proud? I mean, it's kind of like, my mother is, my mother, I think, she is proud of me, but she doesn't say that. I mean, we're not touchy-feely.
I understand. My mother will be 94, so I really relate to your book very much.
I'm glad. We're all kind of in the same boat here together, right? Many of us. Others?
How was it like to go from New York back to your childhood home in Missouri?
Well, when I went, I didn't know that I was going to stay. I didn't, I'd periodically get back to New York for a few days, but when I went, I thought that I was just there for a week or 10 days for my mom's birthday. But she had lost her driver's license, and she hadn't told me. And she was 89, and our agreement was that she would only drive to the grocery store, to church, to Bridge Club. places that were like just a few blocks away. And she had, of course, being my mother, pretty rebellious, had driven to a nearby town and to play bridge, and she'd had a little fender bender. And she'd gotten the driver's license bureau, preparing for your license handbook, and she'd gotten the cleaning lady out, and this woman is in her late 70s, and the two of them were trying to practice driving so my mother could retake the driver's test without telling me. Now, I'd option that for film. But finally, I got this out of her, and I wound up, I never made the decision just to stay there, and that, I think, helps. But I enjoy it. I'm okay there. I never really, I was born in that place, and I spent 18 years wanting to get out of it. And so I'd never really seen it or taken it in as an adult. And after you have been in New York City, I was pretty worn down by New York City when I got there. And I got there, it's really pretty. And there are rivers, the Missouri River and the Mississippi River, and there's some people I like. I miss New York when I go back to New York, not when I'm away from it as much. But
Tell me about Raj, your dog. He's a big part of your life now, right?
Raj was, when I first came back, and I think that was the most depressing time. When I was just getting used to my mother being who she is now. I had a lot of low days, and I would go to the Humane Society in Columbia, Missouri, and I would hold the puppies on, because that made me happy. And along about Christmas time of the second year, I went, and there was a $4 a dog sale. There had been a $4 a dog sale for Christmas, and there were only about half a dozen dogs who hadn't been taken. And there was this skinny little lab puppy, and something had happened to him, and I don't know, he'd been abused, but he was very skittish around children, and so am I. And so we decided that I just felt like this dog was destined for me, and I brought him home, and I convinced Betty that he had been beaten and beaten and beaten. I had to really exaggerate his past, and so she went along with it, and I think that one of the things that is really important when you're dealing with someone in my mother's situation is that you have to draw them out of themselves. And my mother she never really been a reader, and now she reads. I'm not quite sure of the style of reading that she does, but if she finds something she likes, she rereads it and rereads it. And she brings up the people in the book a lot, like Ava Gardner, Frank Sinatra. And she read Ava Gardner's book and Lauren Bacall's book, and Frank Sinatra is in both. And she talked about Frank Sinatra so much, I expected to find him in the shower. And but the dog also, she watches the dog, and this whole thing is like, well, what are you doing? What are you doing? And she keeps track of him, and she doesn't have many jobs left. But if I go to the grocery store, if I'm not going to be gone long, I say, now you have to take care of the dog. And she's like, okay, I'll watch him. And he goes, when I leave the house, he goes back and he jumps up on my bed, and I'll come home, and my mother will be sitting there on my bed with the dog, watching, like, don't you get any ideas? So we have a little family. We have a little unit, and the woman who's my mother's caregiver is also she's like the mother of us in a certain way, because my mother is rebellious and won't do anything that she's supposed to. I'm a terrible disciplinarian. The dog is spoiled and and crazy. So this poor woman comes in, and she's like, you do this and you do that and you sit down, and so we're all chastened. That's what. Hi there.
Do you, I would assume that you wrote this book in this period of time that you've been taking care of it. Do you have to set yourself some time? I mean, when Anne's mom comes to stay with us, she never shuts up, and we tag team it. It's your turn.
It's a monologue from the moment
yes.
she wakes up till she goes to bed, and when he comes home, I say, my ears are bleeding, please take her.
And
So how did you?
Do you have to set aside time, or how do you manage that?
I would give anything if my mother were more verbal. I mean, it's like the real problem for us is like drawing her out of herself. But I wrote this book, and when I did freelance editing at home for a while, and I would sort of start work when she went to bed, and then I'd work until like 4 o'clock, and then I'd go to bed, and the lady who is the caregiver would come at 9 and make our breakfast. But then I started, when I started working on this book, I would get up at 4 o'clock, and I would work on the book and do these little pieces. And then I would kind of come back during the day and make little changes. I'd work from 4 till 9. So that's the way it evolved. And the book exists, so many books, they're either, they're very sad, but there's a kind of like hallmarky, a lot of the books have a kind of a tone that is not one that I'm drawn by. And this book exists because people who saw us together kept saying, you and your mother are funny. You're so funny together. Because we've never been like, oh, no, I love you, da, da, da. We've always bickered. We bicker, and it's funny, and we razz each other and tease each other. That's our style of living, and it's our style of arguing and loving, and I wanted this book to be about two characters, and to be a quirky book, and it's not just about dementia or in caring for somebody, it's about a relationship. And I think about something that we all do, which is losing home, which has always preoccupied me. Hi.
I just wanted to commend you because this book is both heartwarming, heartbreaking. So many people can relate to it, especially in this day and age, but I commend you for what you've done, because it would have been much easier just to turn her over to somebody else, but to have uprooted yourself and moved there. And I know you've gotten such a gift out of it as well, but it's just to read this book is really a treat, and thank you.
Thank you. I mean, I don't want to set myself apart as, every day, everybody is taking care of their elderly people, and mothers are taking care of their children, and people with disabled children, or, everybody is taking care of people. And I sort of feel guilty because it's like, here I'm writing this book, like putting myself forward, and I am not a saint, believe me. And there are people in this room that know exactly how not a saint I am. And but I wanted to write this for one reason, because I never thought I could do it. I've never been able to keep a cactus alive. I was afraid that if I got a dog, I was like, why get a dog? In 20 years it'll be dead, you know? And why, you know, it's like, I haven't had children, I haven't had anything. But I always, you know, dreaded this time when I would be losing my mother. And so I came home, and me and my mother, what I have from my mother is, it's different than like the official love of mother and son. It's like there's that official love that you have to have by role. I really like my mother. I like her. And, you know, and watching her go through this, she is trying so damn hard, repeating these words all the time that she wants to remember, trying. And I love her struggle, and I wouldn't leave her, you know.
That comes through in the book, George. And her strength and your admiration for it, it definitely comes through. And the sense of humor, I've laughed out loud in quite a few places. It's just, I mean, the whole thing with, you know, Anne Margaret's on the phone. I mean, that's brilliant. That's such a gift that you have that quirkiness and that sense of humor and that ability to love her in that way and know her so well and give her that gift. I mean, you're giving her a gift. I know she's giving you one too, but you know, taking care of anybody is such a labor of love. I have 2 children, and I've always said it's the acid trip you never come down from.
Yeah.
You know, so, and I felt that way reading your book. You know.
I didn't know that I felt this way, but I do feel that you should. I mean, I say this in the book, and it sounds a little bit like, you know, Maya Angelou or something. I mean, it's like, but it's like, I really think that at one point in your life, you should just have to deal with. It's like, you know, you have to break down and be human and be there for somebody, or you haven't done your shit in this world, you know, and you have to really. You know, at least a lot of people have done it time after time after time. I see these people who have both parents. I have these people who, you know, and so I just thought I would really try.
What do you, as the editor, what would you as the editor think of you as the writer? And then...
It is an interesting question.
And then the other thing is, can you describe the bully whose wife you encountered upon the return to the town?
Well, me, the editor. Actually, I think I would love myself. You know, because. Well, I'm not. That's a really no. Because I mean, you know, it would be me, and who do I love more? I mean, but I mean, I think it would be more like what me, the writer, would think of me, the editor, because I think I can drive a writer crazy as an editor because I've always been too perfectionistic, and I think I would be a better editor after being a writer because I would be more willing to, you know, I'd be more understanding of the fact that, I mean, when you're a writer, you have to listen to editors say, oh, you should have done it this way, or you should have done it that way, blah, 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 blah. Well, and you think, I've tried it like that, you jerk. Of course, that was the natural impulse to do it like that. And I tried it this other way you're talking about, but it didn't work, and I can give you the 10 reasons, but I'm gonna sit here and be quiet and hope that you'll forget about it. But that's what I have to say about that. The bully, I haven't seen The Bully. And I actually made a mistake when I brought up the fact that his wife was on Facebook. I think that's his sister. And the thing that I know about the bully is that he married a really, really nice woman, a very sweet woman. So I'm at home thinking about, like, should we call domestic abuse, or, you know, and what's going on? When I was later in my high school career, I became popular. I was popular, and the bully was kind of like, he wanted to get in on that. You know, he wanted to, like, he sort of wanted my approval. But I just never forgot that. And you know, the reason I put the bully in the book was because my aunt, who is very, very right-wing, and who parrots Fox News, everything Fox News says, did this thing where she was talking about, you know, Fox News has this, people have anti-bullying, you know, the anti-bullying measures and legislation. And Fox is against the anti-bullying. How anybody could be against anti-bullying? It's like, and how, you know, but they think it means that you can't, that people's speech is being regulated. If, you know, if you can't go, you know, you stupid faggot, you know, that's, but, and my aunt has taken up all these attitudes, and I heard her express them, and I thought, honey, I am gonna blow your skirts up. So, hi. Ooh.
If you were to make this book into, say, a movie, which actress would you choose to play the role of your mother?
I always say Shirley MacLaine, because she has, you know, there's some drive to her. You know, she's, yeah, she's got my, and, but I mean, the way, I mean, as long as it takes movies to be made, I will probably be Madonna. I mean, by the time, it takes 20 years for anybody to make a movie, and with this, it's not exactly.
Who would play you?
Huh?
Yeah, Brad Pitt.
Who?
Brad Pitt.
Oh, what a good idea. He's from Missouri. He's Brad Pitt, more like Melissa Etheridge. But I don't know who would play me. Elton John. But does any,
To do Fresh Air with Terry Gross. I was thinking about that the other day.
Yeah, that was good.
well, I was nervous. I was really nervous. And when the publicist takes you and they tell you all these things, you know, it's like you need to be selling the book. And I got there, you know, you sit down, you're not in the same room with her. I was in New York, she was in Philadelphia, and she comes on the phone and says, hi, I'm Terry Gross. And you know, she reads you this thing that's about permission to air what you say, and da-da-da. She's very businesslike. And for some reason, for me, being on Terry Gross, it was like, I wanted her approval. I wanted Terry Gross to like me. I wanted her to like me in my book, and she's slightly withholding. I found her somewhat is she listening? She's probably on there. It's like, you'll never be on this show again. But I mean, she's, the thing about it is that if you write, everyone who writes about the book now is, I mean, it's 4 sentences, and they probably haven't read it, and they read the flap copy, and they, you know, and there aren't that many places where you get longer criticism or longer discussion. And so you're so incredibly grateful to have someone discuss your book in a serious, extended way that, you know, it can't not be a good experience. And she's a reader. She's obviously a literary person. And it helped me that she also has a sense of humor. she clearly likes to laugh. So that was my Terry Gross moment.
Who did you have as an editor, or was it a good relationship, and did they edit you?
It was a great relationship, and her name is Carol DeSanti, and she is somewhat, she's a lot more reserved than I am, and she is somebody who does something that is so smart that I never ever did, and she edits by suggestion and almost hints, and you kind of have to she'll give you a little, well, it's like a little hint, and it goes into your mind, and you're thinking, did she mean I should change that, or did she mean that didn't work for her? And it sets your mind going is that working? And so she was the most subtle of creatures, and I'm like a bull in a china shop. I come in there, I was burst into tears. Your book is terrible. And she was great. She was really great. I love her, and she's been perfect for me.
Both these cases, both these people that you described seem to be sort of a good fit with you, because they both elicit from you something. If if they were taking up all the oxygen in the conversation, you wouldn't feel like you had to talk.
When I want to take up all the oxygen in the conversation, the thing that I have found as an editor buying books, in the process of acquisition, very, very often works out. You do, it's like marriage, at least a fairly good percentage of the time, you kind of wind up with who you're supposed to be with, at least for a little while. The thing that complicates that is when one person offers somebody a whole lot of money, and if you're an editor and you know that you want this book, and then somebody else offers $500,000, and you know that they're going to go off and be a really bad match. So I'm grateful. I'm grateful for this entire experience. I just, as a first writer, I cannot believe that this big, supposedly impersonal company has given me so much. I know from experience how much I'm getting that a lot of people don't.
You may have, I tried to get there on time, I couldn't manage. You may have introduced the oatmeal cream pies, but I wondered what the significance of the oatmeal cream pies were.
Well,
it's a lovely prop.
There's a scene in the book, and when I have a really bad day, I buy oatmeal cream pies, and a lot of times when I have a really bad day, I tear into them in the car, and and it's like ripping open these little plastic things, and they'll be, my right-hand passenger seat is filled with these little plastic wrappers, and there's a conversation in the book where this woman comes to visit, and I ask her if she wants some, and she looks at me and she said, "No, I'm kind of semi-dieting." And Ann Dodd from Fort Myers, who I know, was kind enough to bring them to me.
Well, and you told her, and I love that scene in the book. You said to her, "Well, I've already had 11 today."
I know. I would like to offer you some. Would anybody like one? They're very good.
Is it Little Debbie's, or
Huh?
what is that?
Am I up to?
Is that what it is, Little Debbie's?
It's
It is,
Little
yeah,
Debbie
Little Debbie.
oatmeal. Who would like one?
Equates with, I don't think I've had one of these for 10 years.
We're having a communal experience.
The best kind.
I know.
It's all being food.
How about
That's what it should be. What about offer communion after your reading?
what? Would you like one? They didn't raise their hands. They're sensible eaters. I hate a sensible eater. Anyway, I think we're winding up, and you all, thank you so much for coming, especially people I don't know. Thank you.
Thank you.
so much. The memoir is Bettyville. For those of you watching it online, you still have time to give us a call here at the store. We'll get one signed. We'll ship it to you. For those of you here, enjoy your oatmeal cream pies and enjoy sitting with the author. He'll be sitting right here. We will have the books for sale behind. Oh, yeah, thank you very much. He'll be sitting right here. The books are for sale behind the counter. Thank you all so much for coming this evening.